My name is David Lee, and I'm actually an intervention. I'm actually two people. On the one hand, I'm a certified addictions counselor. I've developed programs as a program director, intervention specialist. I'm the founder of an intervention company. That's this guy, the rational, understand everything there is about addiction guy. And then there's this guy, and this guy to my left was a drug addict. My brother Kevin, that came out, he helped to found the company with me. There was a time that he walked into my apartment and saw me on the floor, knew in his heart that I was dead, and he said to himself, "Thank God it's finally over." There was a time 2 years before then that after his wedding, where I was the best man, I gave this great speech, and then I promptly stole all his wedding money. And he looked me in the eye and he said that he didn't care if I lived or died. There's that guy. And that guy's the drug addict, the emotion. So I'm going to try and explain things from both sides. And I think that's important. You guys know what an intervention is? Anybody? Okay. Intervention really is when an outside source comes in and you take an individual that's engaged in unhealthy behaviors, an outside source comes in and influences that person and changes their direction so that they get into healthy actions or behaviors. Sooner or later, an intervention will happen on every drug user, every alcohol user. Sooner or later, an intervention always happens. Whether they wreck their car, whether they get arrested, or whether you find them dead on the bathroom floor, as has happened with families that we've talked to. Sooner or later, everybody quits. I am one of the fortunate ones. About 90% of people that have interventions done, whether it's just a general standard, about 90% of the people that do interventions, or I'm sorry, have interventions done, do go to treatment. 10% of the families that we speak to that have the desire, the need, the means, only 10% will agree to do an intervention. Which means that it is easier to take an unwilling, defiant, angry, I don't have a problem guy and convince him to willingly enter treatment than it is to take a caring, loving, worried family that wants to save his life. It's harder to convince them to let us do it. And I guess the question is why? The stories that I told you about my brother, my family waited to do an intervention on me. And there were a lot of warning signs. So many warning signs that any family that knew me and knew my family would say, well, I wouldn't tolerate that. I would have thrown them out. I would never have put up with the things that you did in your family. And the thing is yes, you would. It didn't happen overnight. You know, I guess I like to reframe it for families because everybody focuses on the drugs. The drugs do create problems, sure, but the drugs were not my problem. I shifted from drug to drug to drug. The drugs weren't really my problem. What my problem was, what I was really addicted to, was number one, I was addicted to avoiding uncomfortable feelings, things, and situations. If you tried to talk to me about my problem, I could shift the blame instantly in such a way that you would believe me. If you tried to make me feel uncomfortable in any way, I could play the victim. If my mother, tried to confront me, I could flip it on her and make her feel guilty. I didn't intentionally do these things, I instinctively did it. I became very, very good at making an uncomfortable confrontation or situation go away. If I had homework or I had bills in front of me, which is uncomfortable, I would put them in the I'll deal with them tomorrow pile. I didn't rationally know that I am avoiding an uncomfortable thing. I began to learn tricks that would work. Drugs were one of many things that I would do. And what was my problem? Number one, I was addicted to avoiding uncomfortable feelings, things, and situations. Second thing I was addicted to was pleasure. Seeking pleasure, whether it was drugs, whether it was sex, whether it was this. Those are the two things, and if you reframe it and look at that, then you can begin to understand what the problem is. Because a lot of families think, as long as he's not doing drugs, he's fine. My 27-year-old is living in my basement and doesn't have a job, doesn't have the means. When I try and talk to him about it, he doesn't want to do anything about it, but at least he's not using methamphetamine. Life is fine. The problem is, if you define the problem as drugs and drugs alone, you will be stuck like my family was. So I wasn't a daily drug user, I was a binger, which means that I could go for days, sometimes weeks, without a drug. But when I would binge for 3 days. I would steal my family's car, I would steal their money, I would sell their possessions, and everybody would go up in arms. Oh my goodness, David, we got to do something about David. And then I would come back, and I would make one little change. I wouldn't use for a day. I'd go to church. I'd get a job. All they wanted more than anything was to believe that I was heading in the right direction, that they would back off. I would go up a little bit, and then I'd travel downwards. Up a little bit, downwards. And that's how you end up, after 15 years of addiction, stealing your brother's wedding money and having him not do anything about it. My family was stuck between hope and fear with me. My family did not stand a chance against a guy like me. And the reason they didn't stand a chance with a guy like me is because they loved me. They cared. They did not want to hurt me. And what was I about? I was about every single moment of my waking life, every single minute, I was about what can I say or do to feel better. It defined the relationships I had. I would draw people into my life that could accommodate that. The people that wouldn't like my addiction, I wouldn't bring them into my universe. But the people that would, the drug addicts, those friends, people that didn't care, I would draw them in. I was slowly creating a system around me, a system of people that could best serve my avoiding uncomfortable feelings, things, and situations, making myself feel better. I was stuck with my family. I couldn't very well just get a new family. I was stuck with my mom. So what did I do? I changed my mother. They didn't stand a chance against me. My mother has what most mothers have, was guilt. The guilt that maybe, just maybe, if she had done a better job, her little son would have never been a drug addict. And because she was haunted by the guilt that it was somehow her fault, she wouldn't punish me. She would absorb the negative consequences that were coming towards me because she felt she deserved it. She wouldn't throw me out. I could change my mother. My mother so desperately wanted to believe that the problem would go away, so I would sell her hope. I'm sorry that I went out last week. I promise that it will never happen again. I give you my word. And when I give you my word, I'm probably telling you the truth, but it doesn't matter. If you put a lie detector on me when I'm selling you the story of hope, it'll say I'm telling you the truth because I believe it. You can drug test me every day. You can hold on to my paycheck. You can hold on to my car keys. Please let me stay at your house just one more night. Don't throw me out. Give me one more shot. She so desperately wanted to believe in the hope that tomorrow would be a better day, she would buy it. I didn't intentionally manipulate her. I instinctively did. I knew the things that would work. Sometimes the sympathy ploy would work. Fine, you don't think I wake up every day and realize what a piece of garbage I am? So you can go ahead and rip on me all you want. I know I'm a failure as a husband. I know I'm a failure as a son. You think I like living at your house? Being a screw up? So go ahead, Mom, rip on me one more time. Because I know I'm a loser. And then my mother would flip. No, you're not. You are worthy. I am a master at manipulating those who love me the most. And the sad part is that I only know that being a professional and looking back through my own life. I didn't realize, see, the thing is that I didn't suffer in my addiction anywhere near as much as my family did. I surrounded myself with a family and friends and loved ones that absorbed the negative consequences of my lifestyle choices. A lot of people hear about a bottom. You gotta reach your bottom. Gotta reach their bottom. Nobody changes unless they reach their bottom. I was at the bottom, why didn't I feel it? Because my family felt it for me. My mother was the one that was up all night worried about where I was. Was I? No. She was the one that had to go out in the ghetto and look for her car that I had sold to a drug dealer. But then she got a new one, right? My brother was the one that had to suffer. My family was the one that suffered. When I lost a job, my family felt it, not me. I had a pretty good life. 27, 28 years old, living at Mom's house. My mother had this amazing, she had a magic fridge. It was pretty cool. You opened it, and there was food. I don't know where it came from, because I never bought it. She had these magical lights. She turned them on. I never gave her a penny for any of those things. And the sad thing is I'm kind of giving you the cold equation here. But if you had met me, you would have said what a nice guy I was. And I was. Most addicts are good-intentioned people. We're just sick. My operating basis in life, every minute, was what can I say to do to feel better? And as a result, I would change the people around me. So why do families wait? Very much like Christine's, I could tell you this story about, I'm going to change her name, Jane. I had to show up at Jane's house. She had a 23-year-old son, very similar situation, methamphetamine. I didn't realize that I would find myself in her garage with her family hiding behind their deep freezer as her son is coming to kill us as a result of an intervention that he didn't think went all that well. Methamphetamine. Now, she had signs years before, so why did she wait until her son was violent? Why did she wait until he was half insane to do this intervention? There's plenty of signs. I received a call a week ago from a woman by the name of Helen. And Helen said, I contacted your company about 4 months ago in regards to my grandson who used to be addicted to heroin. And I said, used to be addicted to heroin? And she said, yeah, unfortunately his funeral's tomorrow. But she had spoken to his father, and the father decided not to do an intervention. So I would like to do an intervention on him for his alcohol. And I hate when I get those calls. And I remembered who she was. And I remembered the story. And the story went along like this. The father had contacted us and had said, I just realized that my son is on heroin. I had no idea. He's a good kid. He's in sports, things like that. I had no idea he was on heroin. And how I found out is that I walk in and I found him blue on the bathroom floor. So I called the paramedics and they showed up and they shoot him up with Narcan, which is an opiate blocker, and adrenaline. They brought him back to life. My son is in the ER. He's in the ICU. I'm going to come back there and see him. What do I do? So I talked to him for about an hour. And I explained the problem isn't the drugs. The problem is how he deals, or most importantly, chooses not to deal with life. The drugs are one of many symptoms. There's a lot more things going on. I like it. I'd like to talk to you again, but I need to go see my son. It's Friday. Saturday, I don't hear from him. Sunday, I call him. Thanks for calling back. But I don't think we need to do an intervention, and I don't think we need to get him into treatment. Why is that, I say? He says, I had a long talk with my son, and he's learned his lesson. His son was flatlined. He was dead. He was dead and brought back to life. His son learned his lesson as a result of that. And he looked me in the eye, he said, I swear, Dad, I'll never do it again. And 3 months later, they're having his funeral. So why did that family wait? Why would you wait? Why would you wait to get your son into treatment, or your daughter, your mom, or your dad? Why would you wait? I'm giving you the scare stories, but the stories are all pretty much the same. Whether your loved one, you find him dead on the bathroom floor, or whether he does the long goodbye. Most drug addicts don't overdose and die. Most alcoholics don't. Most of them just fade away. The spark that used to be them will slowly flicker away and die. The person on the inside goes away long before that body goes out. And that's even harder. If Christine's son had not chosen treatment, you would have been lucky if he had died. Because with methamphetamine, sooner or later you go crazy, sometimes permanently, like I did. Why do these families wait? Why do they wait, I don't know how many years ago it was. About 12 years ago, I was in a meth psychosis. I was addicted to everything. So there was a period I was on methamphetamine. It seemed like a great idea. When you use enough meth, sooner or later you start to become neurotic, kind of like bipolar. I was up and down, up and down. I was agitated. I was on top of the world and down, on top of the world and down. If you use enough of it, sooner or later you become psychotic. I was hearing auditory hallucinations, seeing visual hallucinations. I was connecting patterns that weren't there. I was convinced that there was a conspiracy against me involving government agencies, and people, and even my own family. So I was in this hotel, and I was using drugs, and I was on about a 5-day binge. By the 3rd day, the television's talking to me. Now, if you're on a drug binge and the television starts talking to you by the 3rd day, it's probably going to be a bad time, but I can't stop. Once you start, you got to finish. When the television starts talking to you, it's usually saying bad things. It's not saying, hey, you're a wonderful guy. Because what happens with methamphetamine is whatever your deepest, darkest things are, your fears, your insecurities, your guilt, that layer that separates the subconscious from the conscious disappears and everything comes out. And it'll project it into the world around you. If you think you are a terrible human being deep inside, because of the stealing, and the lies, and the guilt, and the shame, it'll project it out in the world around you. Sometimes in the form of snipers, sometimes in the form of people that are about to kill you, sometimes in the form of the DEA. The television informed me that the drug dealers had kidnapped my girlfriend, and they had killed her, and they were on their way to kill my family. So I knocked out the drug dealers, and I kicked down the door of the motel clerk and held him at knife point because I thought he was in on the conspiracy. Well, I contacted the police. And when the police showed up, I looked at his gun because I knew that he wasn't a cop. I knew that he was a hitman coming from the drug dealers. He was a part of the conspiracy. He was a big guy. And I'm not a big guy. I'm looking at his gun, I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, this hitman's going to kill me. And I was this close to taking it. That was a bad day. That's what methamphetamine took me. And I would love to tell you that was the last time, but it wasn't. A bad time isn't enough for a guy like me. Why is a bad time not enough? There's a difference between being at the bottom and feeling the bottom. I was surrounded in a system, including my family and my friends, that provided the most amount of comfort for me, that allowed me to continue doing what I was doing. I believe I was crashed out on their couch probably 2 days after that. Surrounded in love, surrounded in attention, surrounded in caring. Why do families wait? Why did my family wait? My family waited, and every single family waits because I taught them to wait. That's why. My family, like every other family, is stuck between hope and fear. The hope that I sold them that tomorrow will be a better day. Every family member connected to somebody that is addicted to drugs has the hope, because that's what you want. You don't want it to be chaotic anymore. You want it to be different. You'll give anything to make it different, even compromise your own integrity and belief system, as did my family. And I sold them the hope. I don't want to be like this, Mom. You think I do? I want to get off this stuff. I don't want to be like this. I want to have a white picket fence and a good wife and a job and a car. I want to be like this. I sold them the message of hope. My family was stuck between hope and fear. I also sold them fear. The fear was that if they pushed me too hard, they would never see me again. I would go off into the ghetto, get shot by a drug dealer, or go off and be a prostitute or something. I planted the seeds of fear so heavily in my mother that she knew if she kicked me out, she would never, ever see me again. Many times we talk to families, and the first thing they say is, I don't want to do an intervention because I don't want to upset them. It's like upset them. How amazing are we as drug addicts that I can create this idea that if you come knocking on my door with a gift of recovery and a gift of life or spirituality, whatever it is, I say, I want to help you. I can convince you that if you knock on that door, it'll make me upset. I don't do it. You know, how interesting is that? Mom, I've decided I'm going to go kill myself in the bathroom, but don't call the police. Don't want to upset them. That's what it was like for me. You know, I had my family stuck between hope and fear. I taught my family to wait. And many families do. If you walk in any bad neighborhood, red light district, Skid Row. I lived in Skid Row in San Diego, California for a while. I lived along a little train track. There was a bunch of us on little mats and things like that. And we all had a story. A story that made us a victim. A story that said it wasn't my fault. It was the boss, the police. My family didn't give me enough money. It was a series of unfortunate events that led me to this position. Everything but me. You know? And I also could sell the hope to myself. See, that's the most important thing. I can trick you, but I can also trick me. Because through it all, I knew in my heart that I was getting better. As I was going downhill, I knew I was turning it around. I was coming up to some conclusions, some decisions in my own brain that I'm going to turn it all around. And I believed it. So when I sat across from you, you believed it. I wasn't a bad guy. I was just a sick guy. I was a drug addict. And what was I addicted to? Avoiding uncomfortable feelings, things, and situations, which means that I could change my belief system in any situation and change the way I perceived reality so that I could be okay with it. My brother once said to me, he said, David, I kind of wish I was a little bit like you. Not all like you, but I kind of wish I was a little bit like you. I said, why is that? And he said, here you are. Your girlfriend just dumped you. You got thrown out of your apartment, evicted. You lost your job. You're X number of dollars in debt. You have a warrant out for your arrest. You're 20-something years old, and you're living on mom's couch. And yet you act like it's no big deal. Like tomorrow will be a better day. I said, I wish that I could deal with life like that. He thought that I dealt with stress and uncomfortable life situations pretty well. Not really. I just didn't acknowledge it was there. It was part of my thing. Again, part of what I really like to do when I talk to families and friends is understand that nobody stood a chance against me. You didn't. Because I could intuitively know what you needed to hear. And it wasn't because I was a bad person. My grandmother, she just passed away. I got to spend the last 2 weeks of her life at her deathbed. I'm grateful for that experience. Prior to that, in my addiction, she referred to it as my shenanigans, which is the smallest word in the universe that could describe what I was up to, but it fit for her. I was her favorite. My poor brother, who did everything right, the attention was always on me, whether it was good attention or bad attention. My poor brother, he was a little resentful. What's so wrong with me that David gets all the attention? Why does he always get bailed out? Well, I was my grandmother's favorite, and I was unlucky in her eyes. That poor David, he lost his paycheck again. Poor David, he lost his car. My grandmother had a certain perception of me. Where did she get that perception? She got it from me. I sold her a different story. I wanted her to be proud of me. I didn't want her to think bad of me. I didn't want my mother to think bad of me, and I didn't want my dad to think bad of me. See, I'm like, I said 2 people, I'm really like 3 people. There's me, the real me, and I believe that most of us are inherently good. I believe we are. I believe that we want to do well. I believe that we feel guilty when we do bad things. I believe that we want to do better and prosper and do well in life, and that, I think, is the real us. And on top of that was my addiction. This layer on top of it of forget about doing the right thing, just do what feels good. And that allowed me to compromise my integrity. If you do something that is against your nature for long enough, you will go insane. I'm a good guy doing bad things. Good guy doing bad things. Did a lot of bad things. On top of that is the illusion that I project to you so that you don't see the bad thing. That's how every teacher, I've been pulled over so many times, and I was always just the wrong place at the wrong time. I've been arrested probably about 5 times. Should have been arrested 1,000 times. I was cut brakes by people that sincerely wanted to help me. I had an incident in Hammond, Indiana. I got pulled over with some drug paraphernalia and things like that, and 2 police officers took an hour of their time to sit with me instead of put me in jail, to try and talk to me. Say, please, why are you doing this? Don't you see what this is doing to your family? They took an hour out of their time, 2 police officers. It's like, hurry up. Thank you. I had a woman once when I was begging for change in California. I'd say that I ran out of gas. If I could hustle up about $10, I could get some more drugs. And this woman said, I'll do it on one condition, if you sit here and pray with me. Fine, it's a short prayer. I was presented with so many different angels and people that came into my life that all said, hey, you have a problem. Hey, I would like to help. Complete and total strangers. And yet I was surrounded by a family that said outwardly that they wanted to help, but didn't. They thought they were helping by giving me a new car or used car with the agreement that I would pay them back. They thought they were helping me when they would bail me out of jail. They thought they were helping me when they would remove the negative consequences of my lifestyle choices. And they weren't, they were hurting me. What had to happen to me has to happen to most people. I had an intervention done on me. And the intervention was my family was just sick of it. And they learned how to step away for the first time. The greatest gift that my family gave me is they gave me the gift of feeling the negative consequences of my lifestyle choice. My grandfather used to say a saying, if the fire is hot enough, the dog will move. I was about avoiding uncomfortable feelings, things, and situations. The only reason I wasn't in treatment or in recovery or spirituality or any of those lifestyles is for one reason. Because at that time, my drug using was more comfortable than any option you guys had. And as long as that condition exists, I'm not going anywhere. My family learned to step away. For a brief moment, my addiction had become more uncomfortable than this crazy idea called recovery. And as a result of the intervention that my family did, I chose to go into recovery and stay there, you know? And that's kind of how it works, you know? You can wait. Maybe one day they'll turn it around. You know, lost another job. Maybe this will be enough. You know, you can wait. Like the guy 3 months ago decided. Sooner or later, an intervention will happen. Whether you decide to gather with your pastor or group it up as a family or whether you decide to hire professionals. Sooner or later, an intervention will happen, and sooner or later, everybody quits. You know, how they quit is up to you. It's more up to you than you think. They're not going to figure it out. They rarely do. I didn't. So that's kind of it. Kind of my story a little bit. You can ask either of the both of us any question you want. I'm pretty honest, so I'll do the best that I can. If it's a very personal question, you can ask after because they are taping right now. Is there any questions?